It started with a shift in her laughter. It used to bubble up from her like music, unfiltered and warm. But over time it became shorter, sharper, like a sound she was forcing herself to produce. I remember the first time I noticed it. It was at our favorite coffee shop, the one where she used to trace hearts in the foam of my cappuccino. She was scrolling through her phone when I made a joke she would have once found hilarious, and instead of laughing, she just smiled without looking up. I let it go, but something hollowed out in me that day. The changes came slowly, like the way seasons bleed into each other. She began staying out later with vague excuses. Just a girls' night? Or work ran late? I believed her. I wanted to believe her, because believing her meant protecting the picture-perfect life I thought we had. A home filled with soft light. A nursery half-painted in shades of yellow and mint. Ultrasound photos pinned to the fridge like treasure maps. We had names picked out. We had dreams stacked like dominoes waiting to be knocked over in the best way. But the truth has a smell to it. A rot that seeps into the corners no matter how tightly you seal the doors. One night, while she was sleeping beside me, her phone buzzed. I never used to look at her phone. I respected her privacy, or maybe I was afraid of what I'd find. But that night, something in me cracked. I picked it up and saw a name I didn't recognize, paired with a message that made my heart still and burn all at once. Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again? I stared at that screen, the world tilting beneath me like a ship at sea. I tapped the thread open and read it all. Every sweet nothings, every promise, every moment that should have belonged to us. Photos, voice notes, plans. My throat tightened. My hands trembled, but I kept scrolling, as if pain could be counted in kilobytes and measured in screenshots. The man's name was Dylan. He worked with her, someone she'd mentioned once or twice, always casually, always with a wave of her hand like he was nothing. But he wasn't nothing. He was everything I wasn't. Everything she wanted in secret. I could feel the betrayal wrapping around my ribs, each discovery another knot. My mind raced, flipping through every moment we'd shared recently, wondering how many were borrowed from lies. Had she kissed me with his lips still on hers? Had she whispered dreams to him after telling me goodnight? I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to know how far it had gone. I needed to know if I was the father of the baby she was carrying. That question became an obsession, a poison I swallowed every morning. I watched her rub her belly with that serene glow, saw her friends coo over her and touch her stomach like it was sacred. I wondered if they knew, if they had any idea. I started gathering everything: texts, photos, timestamps, screenshots. I made copies. I backed them up. I wasn't sure yet what I would do with them, but I knew I had to be ready. Because something inside me whispered that this betrayal was more than a lapse in judgment. It was a campaign, a constructed illusion, and I would not be the fool applauding in the front row of her fantasy. Then came the baby shower. She planned it down to the napkins, custom printed with the baby's name, pink and gold glitter everywhere. An arch of balloons so perfect it looked airbrushed. Her friends brought mountains of gifts. Her mother wept when she opened a hand-knit blanket. Everyone looked at her like she was a goddess, glowing with life and love. I stood at the edge of the room, smiling on cue, my heart a war zone. The box of gifts I brought sat neatly in my trunk. Inside, under layers of tissue paper and decoy items, was a printed stack of every message she ever sent to him. Every confession, every naked photo, every plan to figure things out after the baby came. I even printed the ones where she referred to me as a safe bet and too sweet to know what's really going on. I waited until the speeches started. Her best friend gave one, then her sister, then her. She stood with a hand on her belly and talked about dreams, love, the future. She cried. The crowd applauded. I slipped out quietly and went to my car. I placed the gift box on the table next to all the others, no different from any other except for what was inside. And then I left. I sat in the driver's seat of my car with the engine off, watching the sunlight slant across the windshield, golden and warm like a lie whispered too gently to disbelieve. My fingers rested on the steering wheel, unmoving. My heart wasn't racing the way I thought it would. It was slow, heavy, deliberate, like a final drumbeat before silence. The gift box was inside now, nestled among pastel wrapping paper and tiny stuffed animals, hiding the ugly truth beneath layers of beauty. I imagined her opening it. At first, she'd smile. Her fingers would sift through the soft decoys. A onesie, a framed print of a quote about motherhood, a crocheted bunny. Then her smile would falter as she found the first envelope. She'd think it was a joke, or a mistake. She'd pull out the stack, confusion turning to dread as she flipped through each printed message. The laughter around her would falter. Her friends would lean in. Her mother would ask what was wrong. And then, there it would be. The truth, unvarnished, indisputable, plain as ink on paper. But I wasn't there to see it. That part wasn't for me. I didn't need her tears or her apologies, didn't want her to beg or collapse in humiliation. No, what I needed was for her to know that I knew, that the illusion had ended, that the man she thought would always be safe and silent had teeth of his own, that I could walk away not broken, but cleansed. The ride home was quiet, like the air after a thunderstorm. I took the long way back, past the park, where we had once planned to take our future daughter, past the diner where we'd had our first date, past the street where we used to park and talk for hours because we couldn't stand to go home just yet. Each place felt like a ghost brushing my skin, a memory turning cold. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, my chest aching like a bruise from the inside. I wondered how long she'd kept the lie alive. I replayed every sign I had ignored, the sudden silences, the laughter that didn't quite reach her eyes, the way she started locking her phone and taking it into the bathroom. She thought she was clever. She thought I was a fool. The next morning, my phone vibrated against the coffee table like a wasp trapped under glass. Her name flashed on the screen again and again. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not yet. There were voicemails, each one more frantic than the last. The first was confusion. The second, panic. By the third, she was crying, begging me to talk, to let her explain, to say something, anything. I listened to them all. Not because I wanted to hear her voice, not because I missed her, but because I needed to hear the guilt. I needed to hear her squirm in the silence I gave her. Each message was another confession, another crack in the pretty picture she'd painted. She said it wasn't what it looked like, that it didn't mean anything, that she was confused, that she loved me, she really did. But the screenshots said otherwise. They told the truth better than her trembling voice ever could. By noon, I got a call from her sister, then her best friend, then her mother. Each one tried a different angle. Concern, anger, guilt-tripping, even threats. "You didn't have to humiliate her like that," her sister snapped. "She's pregnant, for God's sake." Her mother begged me to think about the baby. Her best friend asked how long I'd known, and when I told her long enough, she went quiet. I didn't respond to any of them beyond a single text. She deserved to know I knew. I didn't go back to the house that day, or the next. I stayed, at a hotel. I needed space, needed clarity. In that sterile, silent room, I stared at the ceiling and let the weight of it all settle. I remembered the first time I saw her cry. It was over a stupid movie. She curled into me like I was shelter. I held her and promised I'd always be there. I meant it. She didn't. Eventually, I went back, not to talk, not to stay, but to get my things. I walked in with a key that still worked, the hallway smelling faintly of lavender and something new. Guilt, perhaps, or desperation. She was there, sitting on the couch, swollen and red-eyed, her face a battlefield of mascara streaks, and trembling lips. Her hands clutched her stomach like a shield. "Please," she said. "Please talk to me." I didn't. I walked past her, packed in silence. My footsteps were the only sound, heavy and hollow on the hardwood. She followed me from room to room, asking questions I refused to answer. I couldn't give her what she wanted. Some neat explanation, some road back to before. That road didn't exist anymore. She burned it the moment she let someone else into the space we built. When I finished, I turned to her one last time. Her eyes searched mine like they were looking for mercy. Maybe they found a trace. Maybe they didn't. "I would have given you everything," I said. "But now I have nothing left to give." I closed the door behind me, not slamming it, not storming out, just ending it, like a final page turned with quiet resolve. The first few days after I walked out felt like wandering through fog with my chest carved open. Everything was both too quiet and too loud. The ticking of a clock, the shuffle of my shoes across the floor, the buzz of my phone vibrating in, short bursts of desperation from people I used to consider family. Her mother called again. I didn't answer. Her best friend left me a voicemail saying she understood why I did it, even if it wasn't the right way to go about it. I deleted it. The only person I wanted to hear from, the only one I couldn't bear to hear from, was her. And yet I listened to her messages every night, not because I wanted her back, but because there was something in the way she spoke now, stripped of all pretense, all power. I wanted to hear her squirm inside the silence I left behind. There's a strange power in knowing someone who once looked at you like the center of their universe is now orbiting yours in wreckage, unable to pull you back in. She kept sending messages, every night. They started with pleas, then apologies, then rage. She accused me of cruelty, said I'd traumatized her, said the baby didn't deserve to grow up with this kind of tension. Then, as if realizing she'd gone too far, she'd circle back with softer words. She missed me. She was scared. She made a mistake. She still loved me. Couldn't we try again? The worst part was that a small, broken part of me wanted to believe. Her. That part of me remembered the night we found out she was pregnant. She'd come out of the bathroom holding the test with both hands like it was glass. I remember the tears in her eyes, the way she collapsed into my chest, laughing and crying at the same time. We stayed up that night planning, naming, dreaming. She fell asleep with her hand on her stomach and my hand over hers. That memory still played like a soft song in the back of my mind, looping quietly even as the truth screamed over it. But I couldn't let that memory blind me. Not after everything. I started therapy. It wasn't something I'd ever thought I'd need, but after nights of lying awake, replaying every message, every touch, every moment that had been corrupted by her betrayal, I knew I couldn't carry it alone anymore. The therapist, Angela, had kind eyes and asked questions that cut through my armor before I knew what was happening. "What did you lose, really?" she asked me one day. Was it her? Or the idea of her? That question haunted me. Because the more I peeled back the layers, the more I realized I hadn't lost her. She had already left long ago, slipping out through half-truths and gaslight smiles. What I lost was the version of her I'd created in my mind. The woman who never really existed. The woman I wanted her to be. In the sessions, I talked about everything. About the first time we met, her laughter, her confidence, the way she leaned across the bar to ask my name like she already knew it. I talked about our road trips, our late-night fast food runs, the time we danced in the living room at 2 a.m. to a song playing from her phone's cracked speaker. I told Angela how that woman, that version of her, had died somewhere along the way. replaced by someone who could look me in the eye and lie without flinching. One afternoon, almost 2 weeks after the baby shower, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. It was Dylan. He didn't start with an apology. He started with excuses. He didn't know how serious we were. She told him we were basically done. She said she wasn't even sure the baby was mine. He told me he was sorry for what happened, but I could tell from the tone of his message that he wasn't. He was trying to clear his conscience, not fix anything. I didn't respond. Later that night I got another message. This time, it was her. She said she had something to tell me, something I deserved to know. My stomach turned before I even finished reading it. She asked if we could meet. Just once, somewhere neutral. No drama, just truth. I stared at it, the message for a long time, my thumb hovering over the screen. I knew what she wanted. A confession, an explanation, a chance to twist the narrative, maybe even a desperate attempt to pull me back. But I also knew that if I said no, I'd never really get closure. I'd always wonder what else she was hiding, so I said yes. We met at a quiet park at dusk. The air was soft and golden, the kind of evening where the sky looks bruised with pink and lavender. She wore a long coat, even though it wasn't cold, her hands resting on her belly like it was the only part of her she could trust anymore. She didn't cry. She looked tired, older somehow, like betrayal had weathered her face faster than time. We sat on a bench near the pond where children fed ducks and older couples walked hand in hand, completely unaware of the battlefield unfolding 10 feet away. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said. "I didn't speak. I was scared," she continued. "Everything happened so fast. The pregnancy. Us. I didn't know how to deal with it. And Dylan, he was just there. He listened. I didn't think it would go anywhere. But it did. Still, I said nothing." She took a deep breath, then looked at me. Really looked. "I did a paternity test," she said. Her voice cracked like glass under pressure. "It's yours." The words didn't hit me the way I expected. They didn't bring relief. They didn't bring closure. They didn't bring anything. They just settled over me like dust. I thought, "It might make a difference," she whispered. "It doesn't," I said. My voice was calm, almost gentle. "It's not about the baby. It's about you. You broke something in me. Something I don't think I can ever rebuild with you." She looked down, nodding slowly, tears catching in her lashes but never falling. For a moment we just sat there in silence, the world moving around us like we were no longer part of it. Just two ghosts watching the living pass by. Finally, I stood up. She didn't try to stop me. She just looked at me like someone who finally understood the full weight of what they'd lost. And I walked away. I walked away from that park feeling nothing. Not rage, not victory, not even relief. Just a stillness. Like the silence after a storm has passed, but before the sun dares to come out again. The kind of silence that isn't peace, not yet, but a necessary pause before anything can grow again. The days that followed were strange. I kept expecting the pain to rise again, to burn hot and bitter like it had before. But it didn't. It simmered quietly in the background, a low hum beneath my skin, but it no longer dictated my every breath. I wasn't healed. I wasn't even okay, but I was aware of who she really was, aware of how far I'd gone to hold on to a version of her that didn't exist, aware of how much of myself I had sacrificed in the name of loving her. I moved into a new apartment, small, quiet, tucked above a bookstore that closed at 7. The kind of place where nothing reminded me of her. No shared mugs, no half-painted nursery, no echoes of laughter that used to belong to us. I bought furniture that I chose. I picked out curtains I liked. For the first time in years, everything in my space was mine and mine alone. There were nights I still thought of her. I won't pretend otherwise, Healing isn't a clean break. It's jagged, it's messy. It's waking up at 3 a.m. with tears on your face because your mind replayed the sound of her voice calling your name in the dark. Sometimes I would dream of her, not the real her, but the girl I met at the bar, the one with fire in her eyes and stories that unraveled like ribbon when she left. And I'd wake up aching for someone who never truly existed outside of my imagination. But then the ache would pass, slowly, quietly. She reached out again when the baby was born. A single text, no photos, no emojis, just, "She's here." I named her Clara. Clara. The name we'd picked out together during one of those long nights, wrapped in each other, tracing names into the air above our bed like spells. I stared at the message for hours. My thumb hovered over the keyboard a dozen times. I wanted to ask what she looked like. I wanted to ask if she was healthy. I wanted to ask if she smiled when she dreamed. But I didn't, because I knew if I opened that door, even a crack, she would walk through it. And she would bring all the weight of our past with her. The lies, the betrayal, the sobs and the apologies, and the twisted half-truths she used like scaffolding to build her own guilt into something I was supposed to hold for her. I had carried it long enough. Instead, I typed a single sentence. "I hope she has your strength, but not your choices." Then I blocked her number. After that, I began building something new, something quieter, sturdier, made not from dreams of who someone might become, but truths I could stand on. I spent more time with friends I had pushed away during the relationship. I reconnected with my brother. I went back to running. I spent whole days outside, just walking, just breathing. And I began writing again, something I hadn't done in years. It started with journal entries, pages of unfiltered pain and memory. Then it turned into something more, stories, letters I never sent, a novel I'd shelved years ago. Each word a step out of the wreckage, each sentence a brick in something new. Sometimes people ask me why I didn't stay, why I didn't try to work it out for the sake of the child. I don't owe anyone an answer, but if I had to give one, I'd say this: because love without trust is like a house with no foundation. Because staying would have taught my daughter that betrayal is something you have to swallow to keep the peace. Because being present doesn't always mean being near. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do for a child is to walk away from the person who broke you, even if that person is their mother. I made arrangements, through lawyers, to be part of Clara's life. I wanted to be her father. I would be her father. But I wouldn't go back to her mother. I wouldn't stand beside someone who once looked me in the eyes and decided I was worth the lie. Clara deserved better than a fractured home sewn together by silence and resentment. The first time I held my daughter was 6 weeks after she was born. She was wrapped in a pale pink blanket, her eyes closed, her tiny mouth open in sleep. And in that moment, something cracked inside me. Not from pain, not from grief, but from the sudden, blinding force of love. A love so complete, so unconditional, it left no room for the past, only for her. I kissed her forehead and whispered, "You are the beginning of everything good." And as she stirred in my arms, I knew something with more certainty than I'd ever known anything before. I may have been betrayed. I may have been broken, but I would not be bitter. I would not be defined by the woman who lied to me. I would be defined by what I built after, and I would build a life worth remembering. For Clara, for myself, for the man I became when I walked away.